Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's afternoon live stream devotional and Bible study. I'm here with Joxer, and we're going to be reading through the book of uh, 1 Samuel, chapter 21, and Jesus is calling for today, February 16th, 2020. Um, Thank you for bearing with me as I took a little bit of a week away. I forgot that it was going to be Family Day yesterday, so back a day later than I originally planned. I'm sorry about that. Um, but I'm ready to jump back in and start with the devotional. So I'm going to let Joxer down, and we're going to get to Jesus is calling for today as he's all excited to be here and helping me read. If I get distracted, uh, I am sorry. Today's the 15th. All right. Jesus is calling, February 15th, 2020. Come to me with all your weaknesses, physical, emotional, spiritual. Rest in the comfort of my presence, remembering that nothing is impossible with me. Pray your mind away from your problems so you can focus on your attention on me. I recall that I am able to do immeasurably more than all you ask or imagine. Instead of trying to direct me to do this and that, seek to attune yourself to what I am already doing. When anxiety attempts to wedge its way into your thoughts, remind yourself that I am your shepherd. The bottom line is that I am taking care of you. Therefore, you needeth be afraid of anything. Rather than trying to maintain control over your life, abandon yourself to my will. Though this may feel frightening, even dangerous, the safest place to be is in my will. And that was inspired by three different sections of the Bible. The first, nothing is impossible with God. Luke 1:37. Then it's now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. To him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus, throughout all the generations, forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians 3:20-21. And then lastly, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not be in want. He makes me lay down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Psalm 23:1-4. Yeah, that theme of focusing and staying focused on God is one that really seems to be the theme over the last couple months with both the devotional and what we're reading in the Bible. And a little bit of a recap from where we are. Kind of the people wanted a king. So God appointed Saul, and God warned them, like, hey, if you get a king, it's not going to be all like cupcakes and roses. There's going to be a lot of negatives to you getting a king. And they're like, I don't care. We want a king. They got Saul, who raised to power and started thinking of himself as not only better than everyone, he started almost putting himself in the position of God sometimes. And he tried to outmaneuver God. And Saul challenged him on it. He's like, you're acting selfishly. You're acting, you know, you're getting your people to ask things. You're asking things of your people that God doesn't ask of you or ask of them. And it's basically just for your own ego. And you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. And then Saul was like, he convinced himself what he was doing was right, but all the more working himself away from God's will. And finally, Samuel was like, all right, God's going to bring up a new king because you're failing him, dude. And enter in David. David, he starts getting a lot of success in things. He starts playing the harp. And King Saul, when he's stressed and angry, he hears David playing the harp, and it makes him feel relaxed. It helps him refocus. It helps him kind of just let go. And it's how he deals with stress and anxiety. And David then has to face down Goliath, who was challenging the Israelites to a battle, champion versus champion. And you have this big 9-foot, super strong, Braun Strowman type monster in the field mocking the Israelites day and night. And then you have this young, squeaky clean looking David, who was small in stature but still had some good looks. Not necessarily one that you would be like, yeah, that guy can take down that 9-foot guy, no problem. King Samuel gives him all of his armor and his sword and is like, go out and fight him. And David takes a couple steps. He's like, yeah, I can't do this. Takes off his armor, picks up what he does for his shepherding stuff, and he goes and faces David. So here's this guy with no armor, no sword, facing off against a military giant. And David picks up a rock. He's like, yeah, whatever. And he stands up and he says, stop making fun of my God. And he whips a rock at Goliath's head, hits him in the temple, knocking Goliath down. The crowd is absolutely shocked. And David walks up, pulls out, don't know where he got the sword from. I'm just going to say pulls out Goliath's sword, even though I'm drawing a blank, and cuts off Goliath's head. And the Israelites won. And the people then are like, man, this guy is awesome. King Saul's like, man, I'm going to give you my daughter in marriage. You're never going to have to pay taxes. You rescued us. You are the greatest thing ever. You are so awesome. And then the other people, the other Israelites start celebrating. They start chanting. And they end up liking David a lot. And David, he ends up gaining a lot of favor. King Saul's like, well, I don't like that people seem to like you more than me. But I did say that I'd give you my daughter in marriage. So how about I put you in charge of this command, and I give you a little bit of troops, and I send you out to this battle where you're going to die. And, that's what King Saul does. David comes back victorious. He's like, yes, I won. Now, where's your daughter? I need to marry her. And King Saul's like, oh, I thought you were dead. I already married her off. But I have this other daughter. And David's like, okay, well, obviously, you don't really want me to marry your daughter, and I don't really have anything to buy her with. I don't have a dowry for your daughter, so, maybe I shouldn't. And then David's like, I'm going to get you killed. So it's okay. Don't worry about money. Don't worry about money. Just give me the foreskins of 1,000 Philistines, and then we'll be good. So King David went out, killed 1,000 Philistines, and cut off their foreskin and brought them back to King David. And he's like, oh, man. All right, well, I have my wife. And all this time, King Saul is getting jealous and more jealous as more and more people are liking David. His son Jonathan ends up becoming best friends with David. His daughter loves David, and that just makes him furious. And one day, King David is playing the harp, and instead of it bringing comfort, it builds up the jealousy and the rage. And David picks up the spear and chucks it at David, trying to kill him. And then he escapes. And he runs away. And Saul starts to chase after him. He's going to kill David. He wants David dead. A few days go by. Some things settle down. And there's this festival. And Jonathan and David are talking. And David's like, your dad wants me dead. Jonathan's like, no, my dad wouldn't do that. He tells me everything. There's no way my dad wants you dead. Like, I'll prove it to you. I'll prove it to you. So there's this festival going on. This is chapter 20 where we were. There's this festival going on. And normally you're there. So if you don't show up for the 2 days and my dad doesn't seem to care, then we'll know everything's good. But if he gets angry because you're not there, then I'll believe you. But everything's going to be okay. Don't worry, Jonathan. Or David. In fact, let's set up, because I know you're nervous, let's set up a little signal. I'll shoot an arrow into the field, and if my dad gets angry, then I'll yell at the servant to go further because it's further away, and you'll know, yeah, my dad's angry and he wants you dead, even though that won't be it. And then I'll give this other signal, which will happen if my dad's okay with everything. And David's like, okay, I'm going to hide out here. Dinner goes on. And, Saul notices David's absence. He's like, Jonathan, where's David? And Jonathan explains that David's not there. And Saul loses his mind. He gets up. He swears at Jonathan. And he picks up a spear and tries to kill Jonathan as he's saying, you're disrespecting our family. You're bringing shame to your mother. You're doing all this. And in his rage, tries to almost kill Jonathan. And Jonathan realizes, like, oh, like my dad's anger for David is greater than his love for me. And he's heartbroken, and he goes out to the field and he does the signal. And where we finished reading the story is David and Jonathan saying their goodbyes as Jonathan acknowledges, maybe for the very first time, that Saul isn't perfect. That Saul is angry and jealous and not trying to do the best. And Saul, if his friendship with David is to continue, Saul is going to kill David. So for the love of his friend, they say goodbye. And that's where our story is going to continue. So, open with me to the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 21. If you don't have a physical Bible, I'd love to hook you up with one. If you're using your computer, Bible Gateway is a great place to pull up the Bible. And if you're on your phone, you can shrink me down and read along with me using the Bible app. Those are the three things that I would suggest. And it is 1 Samuel, Samuel 21, and that's where we'll be reading. There is a couple parts in here that refer back, or not refer back. They foreshadow things in Jesus' life. So we'll go back to that afterwards. It's actually this first section here of 1 Samuel 21, 1-7 foreshadows to Jesus. So we'll go back after. But without further ado, I'm going to take one more sip and then let's jump in to 1 Samuel chapter 21. David went to the town of Nob to see Almaech the priest. Almaech trembled when he saw him. "Why are you alone?" he asked. "Why is no one with you?" "The king has sent me on a private matter," David said. "He told me not to tell anyone why I am here. I have told my men where to meet me later. Now, what is there to eat? Give me 5 loaves of bread or anything else you have." "We don't have any regular bread," the priest replied. "But there is the holy bread, which you can have if your young men have not slept with any women recently." "Don't worry," David replied. "I never allow my men to be with women when we are alone, when we are on a campaign. And since they can clean even, and since they stay clean even on ordinary trips, how much more on this one?" Since there was no other food available, the priest gave him the holy bread, the bread of the presence that was placed before the Lord in the tabernacle. It had been replaced that day with fresh bread. Now, Duge and Edomite, Saul's chief herdsman, was there that day, having been detained before the Lord. David asked Almaech, I'm going to call him Almaech from now on, the priest, "Do you have a spear or sword? The king's business was so urgent that I didn't even have time to grab a weapon." "I only have the sword of Goliath, the Philistine, whom you killed in the valley of Elah," the priest replied. "It is wrapped in cloth behind the ephod. Take that if you want it, for there is nothing else here." "There is nothing like it," David replied. "Give it to me." So David escaped from Saul and went to King Achish of Gath. But the officers of Achish were unhappy about his being there. "Isn't this David the king of the land?" they asked. "Isn't he the one the people honor with dances and singing? Saul has killed his thousands and David his tens of thousands." David heard these commands and was very afraid of what King Ash of Gath might do to him. So he pretended to be insane, scratching on the doors and drooling down his beard. Finally, King Achash said to his men, "Must you bring me a madman? We already have enough of them around here. Why should I let someone like this be my guest?" And may God add a blessing to the reading of his word. So here we have some foreshadowing. So 1 Samuel 2, 1-7. Jesus later refers to what David does here when he is showing both his disciples and his detractors that he is the Lord, even over Sabbath. And that's a really big deal in the Jesus story, especially to like the Jewish readers and stuff at the time. So yeah, we have David now is leaving, and he leaves so quickly that he doesn't grab a sword. He doesn't have food. He has nothing. And he had opportunities to get back. He could have rallied people against Saul, but he doesn't. And he runs and he takes the hardest path, leaving with nothing, saying goodbye to his friend. Think about how easy it would have been to challenge Saul. And the people would have been like, yeah, let's do it. David's better anyway. David has God on his side. Saul's been screwing this up since the get-go. But he doesn't. He runs. He honors the authority in a way. even when the authorities not doing right, he doesn't take his life. And we're going to see Saul later on loving his enemy and letting him live. This is totally foreshadowing like God's heart with things. So many times Saul's life is in David's hand, and David ends up showing mercy. But in this time, he's running away, and you can hear the desperation in these verses as he's like, yeah, I got to do this, and oh, I got to do that, and yeah, I swear, I got people coming. Let me act like a madman and live like a madman in secret in your kingdom right now, because, you know, I'm crazy. Yes, and he'd rather live like a madman in a neighboring thing than to risk his life by just existing. Which is kind of crazy. It shows the desperation that David was in, though. But God honors David trying to do the right thing. And we'll see that as the story continues. The fact that he gets Goliath's sword, I think, like, he's excited about that. He's like, yes, I'll take Goliath's sword. That's amazing. And the fact that, like, he eats the sacrificial bread. Like, God is with him, and yeah, Jesus uses this. This scene is something that God honors. I actually want to go and read that. I didn't have that prepared, so it'll take me a second to flip. Mark 2, 23 to 28. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Mark 2. It's pretty early in Mark. Mark 2, 23 to 28. So, all right. So this is the part in Mark that refers back to this. A discussion about Sabbath. On the Sabbath day, as Jesus was walking through some grain fields, his disciples began breaking off heads of grain to eat. But the Pharisees said to Jesus, "Look, why are they breaking the law by harvesting grain on the Sabbath?" Jesus said to them, "Haven't you read the scriptures what David did when he and his companions were hungry? He went into the house of God during the days when Abiathar was high priest, broke the law by eating the sacred loaves of bread that only the priests are allowed to eat. He also gave some to his companions." But Jesus said to them, "The Sabbath was meant to meet the needs of people, and not people to meet the requirements of the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord, even over the Sabbath." That's the kind of talk that can get you killed. And it did. But yeah, God, and it helps give the reason and the heart behind the Sabbath. It's not about us fitting in to the rules and doing everything right. God cares about us so much that he says, you need to take a day. You need to take a day and rest. Rest and focus on me. That's the point of the Sabbath. Is so that we're not overworked, so that we're not overstressed. God cares about us that much. And it was in direct contrast to a lot of different things. But when we take that time of rest, we are more productive. We do better. We're happier. Things work out better for us when we take that day of rest. When it comes to this, David is called the man after God's own heart. And here, David and his men, they eat what traditionally they would not, and the priest is okay with it because he's serving the needy at that particular time, I guess. It's an interesting thing. There's a couple things in here that are just like, okay. David also disguises himself as a madman, but the king of Gath also thinks that he is king of the Israelites, which is also interesting. He's definitely their champion. He's not their king. Not yet. But that in and of itself is foreshadowing David's story when he eventually does become king. But yeah, for now, let us pray and get on with our Tuesdays. If you're in high school, you're watching this, we're going to be playing Among Us tonight, starting from 3 till 5. So on the Youth Unlimited gaming server on Discord. So drop by there. If you want more info, send me a private message. That'd be awesome. For now, let's pray. AJC, awesome Jesus Christ, thank you so much for the story of 1 Samuel. That we get to see the poisonous of jealousy and ego. That we get to see the David in this desperate situation. That we get to see the foreshadowing not only of David's life and when he is to become king, but we get to see the foreshadowing of Jesus saying, like, yeah, no, God is God over everything, even the Sabbath. And we get to really see and understand the heart of what Sabbath is all about through Jesus' words. And so often when we look at these list of rules, we just see them as rules. For some reason, the Karate Kid's coming into my mind when, they just see themselves as doing these chores, but really it's building something better. And there's a reason behind what you've asked us to do. And sometimes we're blind to those reasons. But Lord, when you ask us to do this, that, or the other, help us to trust and to have faith in your guiding us. Though we might not understand all the reasons behind this, that, or the other, when you are guiding us, let us to move forward in that. Whether that's wearing masks, staying indoors, getting the shot, as scary as that could be, as a form of loving our neighbors, then help us to do that, even if we don't know. Help us to step forward in faith and help us to step forward in strength in you. Because you can guide us even in the most unknown circumstances. And even though everything seems so bleak and almost hopeless for David in this moment as he's running from everyone that he cares and he loves about in order to save his life, in a lot of ways to spare theirs as well. In this moment of darkness, you didn't leave David. Just like in our moments of darkness, you're not going to leave us, Lord. I thank you for your faithfulness, for loving us and going with us through all the storms of life. The wintry ones, the ones on the chaotic waters, and the floods and the fires and the earthquakes. And that so often you come to us. You speak to us in the still, small voice. You're with us through everything, always and forever. Amen. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. May you have a fabulous Tuesday. And hopefully that stay-at-home order actually lifts. We're talking about it lifting. I don't know if it's today or tomorrow, but hopefully it will soon. So maybe I'll actually get to see you guys socially distanced in person. That'd be awesome. All right. Have a great day. God bless.